2023. And we have the select board here with us tonight. Welcome. Are we missing somebody? We have an empty chair or two.
Nick, I thought he was coming, but. I haven't seen him.
Devin is in soccer or
Oh, yeah.
something.
Oh, no, he's at church.
Oh, church.
Okay.
I haven't seen her.
Who?
Greta here.
I haven't seen her yet.
There's another car out there. She was gonna come in to use Wi-Fi. But nobody's seen her, so we don't know who.
She wasn't in the parking lot when I came in.
Huh.
I don't know if he's coming.
Okay.
Makes it difficult.
Maybe they went to the fire.
Yeah, right? We got a
Well,
photo out there.
Right?
Yeah, but Greta would have come here.
Yeah, she was gonna come in early because she wanted to use another, she was gonna do another meeting.
Oh, so maybe she is sitting in her car then, I don't know, but she wasn't there when I came through. Okay, let's do the minutes. We've got a few seconds. Anybody? We just sent a different message. Oh, Devin's here.
Said he was gonna try to zoom in.
Hi, Devin.
Hello, good to see you all.
Long time no see.
Well, I don't usually see you from this perspective.
Can you see us?
Yeah, he can.
Oh.
We're on a different screen, so we can't see him.
You're right here.
You don't know how good or not good you look.
Yeah, not good.
I mean, that goes for everybody, right?
Yeah.
We're missing our presenter right now, so we're just covering our minutes from the last meeting.
Sorry.
Oh, okay, good. You're welcome to sit right here if you like.
Okay.
This is planning and select board.
Planning and select board, oh, wonderful. Can we do introductions?
You sure?
Sorry.
I'm Susanna Brown, I'm chair of planning.
Hi, nice to meet you. It's been a while since I
Yeah, I've
met
talked to you
with
on the phone
Georgia.
many
Yeah.
times, but I wouldn't have known you to.
And I'm Greg Drew on planning and
Okay,
DRB.
great.
Carl Rosenquist on select board.
Hi,
Emily Johnson, Planning Commission.
hi.
Jamie, select board.
Shannon Jenkins, select board.
Jared Weed, planning commission.
Tony Heinlein.
We have one member of the select board on Zoom.
Okay, great.
You can't see
Devin's on
him.
Zoom. You can't see
Devin's
him.
over here.
I can see you all. I don't know if you can see me. Devin Thomas, I'm with the
I was
select
just
board.
on a meeting like that as well, where I could see everyone. Yeah. Yeah, working, regionally here. I just attended a meeting in Montgomery in your parking lot. But hey, one of the benefits of the only one benefit from the pandemic is just the fact that we were able to improve our attendance at meetings and accessibility to meetings with better remote access.
Yes, here
I
comes
think
Greg.
our last guy is coming right now. Dun, 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 dun. We're in entrance.
You sit right there.
You saved it.
Appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, we saved you that comfy chair.
Thinking y'all here.
So this is Nick, he's
Okay,
select board member.
Okay.
We were just introducing ourselves. Around.
and is this a joint meeting that you do regularly or specifically for this?
We're doing it specifically for this, but we're
Okay.
hoping to have a joint meeting once in a while.
Great.
We have had it in the past.
Yeah, it's good. Okay.
So you're on.
Oh, I can. So one of the reasons I'm coming tonight is to do what we call a consultation of the town's planning program. And it's something that we are tasked to do per state statute twice within the municipal planning cycle. So it's now an 8-year cycle. So we look to schedule them twice within that 8-year planning cycle and look to do the second one in the cycle, leading up to a municipal plan rewrite. Or leading up to the time when the municipality would be working on that revision or amendment so that to keep their plan current, which is where the town of Georgia is.
So when you say two, you want like a 4 years and then 8 years or?
It's not, exact,
Sort of.
because we, each year we, look at who, we schedule several.
Right,
each
'cause you got a
year.
lot of towns to work with,
And,
so.
we're keeping track of, okay, is this the first in the 8-year planning cycle or is this the second? And the main target is that we really try to get that second one in within like a year.
Which one the next year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. But other than that, we just get them in and we can.
Okay,
And sometimes, like there's a lot going on in a municipality, or we just feel like, wait, we just haven't met with them in a while, we'll schedule them out of order, So one of the reasons that we think that they're really important is just as the broad check-in, where we're not meeting on a specific project or topic. And it's, we have that agenda that we're focused on, and we don't necessarily have the time to check in on other things. So it's good relationship building, checking in with the community overall on a wide variety of topics, an opportunity to talk about how we can serve you better and work with you in municipal planning broadly and in implementing your plan over the, looking towards the next 8-year cycle. So I have a, just quick agenda. It's loose. I'm gonna follow it. And then as a result of this, I will send you a copy of our enhanced consultation report. And it just includes it'll include a summary of what we talked about here. And also, we have done a very brief review of your town plan. And so we've identified some strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities that can serve as a starting point for the municipal plan revision. So that is actually the first thing that I wanted to do tonight is review that municipal plan assessment. And then we'll talk about some of those recommendations and hear from you, some of your hopes for what you would like to address in your plan. Then I'm gonna then I wanted to talk to you about training needs and upcoming training that we might have. And then I check in on your development review and permitting process, other ways that you're working on and implementing your plan. So other than development review, what's going on, and just an opportunity to talk. And then I will highlight some of the things we're working on, and it's more of an opportunity to say, how can we help? Where are we going next? Looking to the future. So that's what we're covering today. So starting out with your current plan, I am just going to summarize some of the strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities that we found in your current plan, which was adopted January 9th, 2017. So it's an 8-year cycle. So we're looking at 2025, January 9th, 2025. So in terms of strengths, utilities, facilities, and town services chapters is strong and includes good consideration of future needs. The land use section is strong and identifies areas targeted for growth. The South Village Core provides for future mixed use village and a mix of housing types, jobs and services, and pedestrian connections that function to preserve high value farmland and historic village pattern. So that the South Village Core is certainly addressed and identified in your current municipal plan. But I think it's probably been a while since that discussion has been updated, and a lot, of conversation and new development and regulations may have been adopted since then. So I think it's certainly an opportunity to look, while there is a strength in terms of your overall, I think, land use planning strategy to, focus development in that area. I think there is also a great opportunity to reopen that planning discussion and think about where are we now and where do we want to take the South Village into the future in terms of planning. The connection between energy use and land use planning is well described, and the implementation table is formatted well with responsible parties that should aid. It can be helpful for the planning commission in terms of using it as a guide for implementing the plan. But that is something that I always like to check in with municipalities is, are you looking to your plan as a document for where should we go next? What should we work on next? Because if that, and to think about how could that be more useful to me as a planning commissioner or as a select board member? Because the implementation section is really intended to identify those projects and activities that will, further the vision of the plan, right? And so it can be your work plan. Each year the planning commission could take that and say, okay, there's all of these projects identified. For this year, we're going to focus on these 3. And then every year you could go back and do that, but sort of really making that connection between what the planning commission does and the agendas the planning commission sets between that and the plan can really help make the plan more, purposeful, really. And so that's helpful and something to think about. So in terms of weaknesses, we do need to add the forest integrity section there. We need to add some language and then also some goals that address habitat blocks and forest fragmentation. So that's a new
171.
Yes, exactly. And so I know that there's some staff from Department of Forest, Parks and Rec that would be happy if we wanted to pull in some state wildlife biologists that would be happy to work. They're doing a mapping exercise in a lot of towns that can really help inform municipal planning and develop good plans that would comply with Act 171. So if that's something that you were interested in over the summer, that could be good project. The housing section should state more clearly that manufactured homes should be treated as single unit homes. AUDs should be addressed within the text of the chapter. Currently, they're only addressed in the goals and policy section. So ADUs are accessory dwelling units. And the housing section should be more clearly referenced the community's land use and infrastructure plans that support multi-unit housing in specific districts. So just overall, I think the housing section could be, beefed up a bit. And especially there's a S100 just passed both houses today, or the Senate and the House today, and I think is on its way to the governor's desk. So there's going to be some.
That's going to be really difficult for small towns.
Can you remind me? I remember reading about S100. Can you remind me about what that is?
Yeah, well, it's right
Maybe a
here.
short, sorry.
Yeah, so there are some zoning preemptions that would impact areas in municipalities that are served by both municipal sewer and water. And so right now,
Yeah.
there's nowhere in Georgia
Yeah.
that meets that criteria, but if that was something that eventually happened in the South Village, then those preemptions would apply. I think that those preemption, based on what you are looking to do in the South Village, or at least my understanding of what you're looking to do, I don't want to make any presumptions, but I don't think that these preemptions would conflict with the zoning that you would already probably have there if you had sewer. But you don't yet.
Is that sewer and water? Or
It's sewer and
or
water, municipal sewer
So we'd
and
have to have
water.
both.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I know the parking one. was
There's
one that got
parking.
me.
Mhm.
You only have to have one parking space per residential dwelling unit.
Right, and so actually the
And
parking does
I'm
apply
like,
everywhere.
so where are people going
We
to
live in
park?
Vermont, we don't have
Right.
public transportation.
A lot of houses have 3 or 4 drivers.
Yeah.
And if
Okay.
you only require one parking space, then your roads are gonna be full of cars or something. I don't know where they're gonna go.
Right. So the parking does apply everywhere, not just areas with
Yeah, that's the
sewer and
thing.
water. It's the
I-
density that applies, that.
I felt like that was a good rule if you lived in an urban area, but in Georgia, it's just not gonna. cut it.
Yeah, and so it does allow you to increase it to 1.5 spaces.
Wow. That'll get you that other car and it doesn't even make sense, you know?
But anyhow,
What
so.
about that
I think
motorcycle?
Oh, there you go. One person has to have an e-bike, one a
Yeah.
motorcycle, and one can have a Mini Cooper.
And your kids can't have a tricycle. That's-
In light of the housing situation that everyone across the state is experiencing, the high prices, the sort of lack of diversity of you mismatch of what's needed and what's available. I think looking at your housing section will be important as part of your
Mhm.
municipal plan
Mhm.
update.
One question that, in the existing plan, I remember the last time we went through this, the data that we were able to get, we didn't actually have very good tax data as to exactly what, for instance, rental units. And, at that point, it was Tyler that was helping
Taylor.
us. Taylor. And, he wound up getting these wild models that said just ridiculous numbers. And so that's the numbers reflected in the present plan. And that would be one of my goals, would be to see that we actually had accurate data this time, because those models had nothing to do with the town of Georgia in the state of Vermont.
Okay, yeah, and sometimes we're limited by the data that is available.
Yeah.
But we can do our best.
I would recommend you go look at the draft of Northwest Regional that just came up, and I think that you will see if there's any good Georgia data there that maybe is available.
This is Northwest Regional Planning.
That's right, but they posted their draft just recently.
Our draft regional plan, correct, and we also just completed a regional housing needs assessment.
Which, to your thought about being able to grab good data, the
Well,
timing is right as you're rewriting.
But
your town plan.
the issue was that the data came from Northwest.
Oh,
That's what we were wondering if it was possible to actually look through the tax records or something, and that kind of labor frame was just not available. And so these were national database models that said, for this size, this number of people, you must have this many rental units, and we just don't. I mean, it was much worse than what the data actually,
Yeah,
the data that we
our real
used.
numbers are much lower.
Yeah, which is not good. And that's why we.
So you're
need-
saying it said there is a certain percentage of your housing stock or occupied housing was rental units, and you felt that was
That was
inaccurate?
nowhere near
Oh.
whatever.
Well, it's
Yeah,
kind of like Northwest just put out, or maybe not just, but recently put out a list of how many, I don't know if it's how many miles or how many feet of sidewalk each town has. But it turns out 90% of the sidewalk that they came up with 295 in Georgia or 296, which is the lowest number of every town in Franklin County. But almost all of that is not public sidewalk. It's in a development or around the outside of a store. I mean, they
Yeah, or
counted
a
any
school.
sidewalk
Yeah.
in town, yeah, at the school, because I asked Kyle.
How would you like us to count it?
I would like it just to be sidewalk that people can use to get from one place to another. If you're only going from your car into the store, that sidewalk doesn't really assist you, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, it makes it look like we have a ton of sidewalk and really we have a couple little stretches of
Yeah.
sidewalk. I was like, Kyle, where did they get this number?
He was telling you that we were counting sidewalk,
He looked
that
up.
went on to private property.
He gave me the list. He said Dollar General sidewalk counted, the school sidewalk counted. I forget, there was a couple other stores that have sidewalk around them. He said, that's where all your sidewalk is. And I was like, that makes you think that we have some stretches of sidewalk where in reality, we have a piece that goes from Dollar General to Ray's.
Yeah.
And a piece that goes from Wimble's to Nowhere Land.
All right, moving on, opportunities. So some of the items we identified as opportunities, and I've already, housing is also an opportunity, South Village is also an opportunity. And then fiscal development and land use sections need to be updated. There's a build out analysis that's incorporated into the plan that's outdated. To the extent that you decide you want to do an update to that or not. There are other ways to look at the build out, and you want to just, you need to determine whether it's necessary. I think there was what funded that was probably the Northwest Vermont project, which was it was state funded and included several towns along the interstate corridor. So you'd have to decide whether you wanted to incorporate that into a project and whether you had funding for it. But certainly you probably can either take most of the analysis out that is in there now. Incorporate findings of the Georgia South Village Master Plan, so more related to the South Village. You can decide whether or not to incorporate an enhanced energy plan to get some greater say in Public Utility Commission, Section 248 energy decisions. So wind, solar, if you have an enhanced energy plan, there's a specific template for that. It's very long, and most of our communities include it as an appendix to their town plan. But then the Public Utility Commission would give the town substantial deference. You would still have to enter the proceeding as a party, but then your plan does have greater weight. And we do have we do have draft enhanced energy plans for all of our communities. So there's one sitting in the file. It does need to be updated because since it was completed, some things have changed. But we are currently working on that right now. Like we're working on a regional plan energy chapter right now, which has to have all of the same updates, and we've done it for a few of our communities already. So that would be an easy thing to do if that was something that you
Is
wanted.
that more on the placement or on the design of the energy?
It can be on the
installation?
placement, like, for example, if you have conservation districts that are identified in your plan, you can stipulate that you do not want like wind
Okay.
located in those conservation districts.
One of the updates that has been a little bit of a difficult point, let's say, we have identified the need to identify view sheds. And the state statute says that we can't actually put it into our plan if it isn't inventoried in the plan. So we need to list our view sheds. The difficulty that we wind up with that is once you start the regulation process, when it hits the DRB of, we prefer you didn't do that, or you can't do that because you're in a view shed, begins to be a real legal issue. And so we're just wondering, we may need some help on that one.
Yeah, I know. I had spoken with Emily at the end of last year about that. And the challenge is really carefully identifying not only where those important views are, but then how you're going to incorporate that into your development review process and apply fairly standards that would protect those views. And that's not easy.
Do any towns in Franklin County? I know Jericho has it, Essex has.
Yeah,
they both have,
South Hero has
unique
the
overlays.
inventory and it's in their plan, but they never
It's not
did a
okay.
very good job of translating that to development review standards.
Right.
So
Right. So is it more the design of what can be done? Or is there actually, if it's in the town plan, then in the regulations,
Correct.
you can actually say no?
Right, well, you need to define if under what circumstances you would say
Because
no,
one of the-
because
well, one of
perhaps
the
it's just
difficulties
the
in-
height limitation, right? to
Right,
protect
well, in
from
this town, there's a
view
great
or-
deal of people who are holding near and dear to a lot of the agricultural views. But those agricultural views are on private land. And to put constraints and stuff on the people that own that land is kind of onerous. So you kind of got to balance this really carefully. And I was wondering where state statute falls on help with that, or explaining the legalities of that, because
Right,
that's.
well, I think it starts with, you know, a view shed analysis and identifying where those views are and in a very careful way.
Yeah, I mean, one
But, so
thought that
but
we
you
had, we
would
were
need a
thinking about
professional
having okay,
to
because
come
that's
to the
another.
table. I mean, there would be room and certainly the project would be need local, you know, layperson involvement. And that it could be supported, but you would need a professional that is skilled in view shed analysis to come to the table and do that.
Because we were thinking about, I know one town had done almost like a contest sort of thing, you know, write down your favorite view in town. And they took that inventory and then went out and identified them, and then they had a score sheet that was designed.
They did that through a company.
I'm not saying it's.
That was.
impossible,
But that
If you have the
company
right
has gone out
volunteers
of
at the
business.
table.
We looked into hiring them and they've gone out of business.
Yeah. So,
So what do they do when they identify that? Is it marked on the property card like a wetland, so somebody doesn't?
I think every
Well,
consultant
the
might
way-
have different
The way Essex does it is they have scenic overlays. So they have their regular zoning map and then they'll have overlays, and it may be a long narrow strip, it may be a circle, it may be a section of road, different, depending on what it is they're trying, you know, if they're trying to protect the view of Mount Mansfield, it's a section of road, and they say if you build, you know, along that road, you can't build higher than a certain amount so that people traveling on the road can still see Mount Mansfield or whatever it is. But if it's, you know, a rock outcropping, it's gonna be different, you know, so it just depends on what the scenic thing is that they're protecting. So there's all kinds of notes on this overlay layer, and if you come in with a project that falls where the overlay is, then there's some kind of guidelines that.
So it is noted in the property cards here, like if.
I don't know if
somebody
every-
finds a piece of land to develop.
But just like when you come in with a project, you gotta say, what zone are you in? You would say you're in AR2, but it's in the scenic overlay district also, you know?
Gotcha.
There are consultants that would do this type of work, you know, that work in Vermont. I know, I think SE Group has done that work before, so, if that was something you wanted to do, you would either have to budget the funds for it or seek a grant. But it is, I think that in order to do it right, you know, you do need to get a professional involved to help you.
But it sounds like it's option,
It's not required.
it's not required, okay. So,
The problem is, it says that we encourage protecting our historic, educational, and scenic resources. But then we have no meat behind that because.
Right,
we
and
haven't got
every
the
town is
what's, you know.
in similar ways. I
So-
mean, you can even, you know, you can
It's not-
identify the, you know, wonderful scenic attributes that Georgia has in your town plan. But in terms of translating those to
Right,
development
Right.
review standards, that's where you really need the meat. So. So I think that takes me through the end. What do I have here? So energy. Update stormwater section to incorporate new work that's being done, such as municipal roads general permit. So there's some work there that can be added. So readability. Okay, so there's one, you know, I think your plan's pretty robust in terms of length and size. So you can, now would be a great time to sort of take a look at some other examples around there and think about what do you want the plan to look like. That also corresponds to how much budget and you have to get it done, right? Because it's a lot it would be more expensive to sort of totally redesign the plan as opposed to just going in and updating sections as it currently is. So that's something to think about. And then finally, economic development chapter could also include a more strategic discussion of the role that the industrial park plays in the economy. So
I'm
those
sorry,
are
what was that again about the industrial?
the
park?
role of that the industrial park plays in the local economy. So there could be more elaboration on that as part of the economic development chapter. And so this will all be sent to you, so you'll have a copy of this to reference.
I think we have 2 industrial parks.
Right, that's the, one's private and one's public,
Okay,
or
yeah.
municipal.
So that's the review of the plan. So next on the agenda is training needs. I will let you know that at the end of May 30th, we are going to be holding our annual Essentials of Land Use Planning and Regulation training. And so that is an overview of municipal planning and land use regulation in Vermont, looking at the state statutes and then best practices. And it's good for anyone new on planning commission or development review board or select board if it's new and they want to, you know, touch up on that knowledge. Or somewhat new because there's so much to know and keep track of. We have experienced folks that attend that training as well, but we really put it on for, you know, understanding that there's turnover on local planning commissions and development review boards, and we want to make sure that that's there for them.
And how do you get information on that?
It is on our website, nrpcvt.com. And it is a Zoom training, so it's super flexible. You can do it from your home.
Unless you don't have internet.
Unless you don't have internet. And we are interested in hearing about whether you would prefer us holding hybrid trainings. We're not going to get rid of Zoom, but I am interested in hearing. I'll come back to that. So May 30th, Essentials of Land Use Planning and Regulation. It's a presentation on Zoom. And you just go on our website, under events, it's there, and there is a registration.
I can't figure out this one. Since you
Over here,
changed your
it's got-
website.
Scroll
can't
down,
find it.
calendar of events, yeah, we just have
Okay.
to scroll. So there it is, Essentials of Land Use Planning
Thank
and
you.
Regulation.
I do have a quick question, just before we get too far away from the analysis. Was it a
It's
SWOT
Tuesday.
analysis that your organization did when reviewing the plan?
It's on a Tuesday.
Just because I heard strength, weaknesses,
Yeah,
opportunities,
so
but I
we
didn't.
did
hear-
say that,
We
no,
don't
it
have a
wasn't a
meeting that
SWOT
night.
analysis
Okay.
per
It's a
se,
it's a fifth
we
Tuesday.
do, we do reviews according to all of the different statutory requirements.
Sure.
And so that's where we base it off of, and then when we put it into this format, we're just coming up with strengths, weaknesses,
Sure.
and opportunities.
Yeah,
But it's kind of like that, but we're
Sure.
not using the,
okay, no, I was just curious,
Template,
yeah, I was just
that-
curious, because
yeah.
if there was any threats to us not having something in our plan, or not something that was defined well enough. But I guess that also could potentially be an opportunity as well, too, depending on how you.
Yeah. yeah, and so, but we are identifying, like, for example, you have to address forest integrity, or you would not receive regional approval, so.
Sure.
We're looking for those things, yeah.
So one of the things you and I talked about was the village designation language. So that is something else that needs to be
Yeah,
added.
how did I-
Certainly not able. to
That's an
get that, right?
opportunity, village designation for sure, sorry. And then the conversation around the South Village and whether you want to pursue a designation there as well.
We can't
No.
until we had sewer and water.
There's a lot of, you can take the steps though. So if it is the steps that you want to start taking, you would identify that in the plan.
And there was a bit of confusion with it because there was one that was town village designation and the other was an historic village.
So the
and it
village
was,
center designation
okay.
is the historic
Oh, okay.
program. And so that program is existing historic village centers are eligible for that program. I did come with a few, I didn't print out copies for everyone, but this is an overview of the benefits to the different designation programs. And so there's downtown, village center, new town center, growth center, and neighborhood development area. So these are all the different designations.
Did you put some dollar signs after those?
Yeah.
We're Georgia here.
Well, and so Georgia Center is eligible for village center designation. The only thing that is not allowing you to apply right now is that one of the application requirements is that your municipal plan include language that says,
Oh,
we want to do village designate,
Yeah.
center designation. We think that it's going to be great for our village because of this.
It's not where
And,
villages now, though, that's the problem.
so for the South Village, you could look at taking the steps to pursue Newtown Center. And the first step to do that in your plan would be to say, we think that Newtown Center designation could be great for the South Village core. It will involve a lot of things, but we would like to pursue that. We think the town should pursue those things. And so in terms of benefits, there's certain permitting benefits like Act 250 fees, 9L, settlement patterns if you're in the designated village center or any of the designated areas, that doesn't apply, so there's permitting benefits. There's tax credits, a variety of different tax credits for private income generating properties. So whether you're a multi-unit residential structure or a commercial structure, even though it's privately owned, it's not just for public buildings, so it's not just for the town. So that's really important to know, and bunch of other different ones, but those are the big ones. State grant, so you get preference or higher scoring in state grants like municipal plan grants and other grants. So that's also a good one, because it does make a difference in your scoring, especially if you're coming in for it's like an average project, but that's really important to your community. Having that village designation can make a difference in whether you get funded in years when there's tight, more competition and not as many funds.
Yeah.
So village center designation is very easy. There's really no harm in doing it. Like, it's a no-brainer, in my opinion, for Georgia Center. Regardless of whether, and then village center, it's not intended to identify areas for growth. It's really about that concentrated core historic settlement and making sure that there's resources to
Who's the guy that we talked to? You remember?
reuse and rehabilitate those existing historic structures in that area.
And because that was easy to get, some of us in the crowd here pushed for that in the South Village, knowing that there was not a lot of plan for water and wastewater over there, because that's where the density would be to hook a village designation with a neighborhood housing development to it, which would help the developers. I don't know, maybe you can speak a little bit to where you see in any of your municipalities, any growth like the South Village has anywhere in your region of the Northwest Planning Commission where you don't have any designation. Do you see much dense growth in areas that don't have any of this designation or neighborhood?
I mean, we don't have any neighborhood development areas in the region. It's a relatively new program. It started in, they say it started in 2013, but I think it took a while before applications started rolling in. There's really only, a hand, maybe 10 out there today, would be my guess, across the state. Yeah. So there's none in our region in Franklin or Grand Isle yet. I hope to change that soon, because I think that it is a great way to encourage walkable housing development next to our historic centers. It would also be eligible if you were able to pursue Newtown Center for South Village. You could do an adjacent neighborhood development area. But so in terms of areas where I see, growth happening outside of designated areas, I would point to St. Albans town, really around St. Albans city outside of the growth center. We do see, density happening there, which makes sense.
For the new town center, the town has to have one or the other, water or wastewater, with a
So-
goal or the other.
So, for Newtown Center, you have to show that the Newtown Center does not, if you do not have water and sewage, municipal water and sewer, the municipality must provide evidence of its commitment to construct such systems within 10 years. So, you don't to apply for it and get that designation, you don't have to have it built. But you have to have a capital plan and community investment agreement that would show that you're serious and you're committed and you've got, you know, plans on the table. So that's the big hurdle, I think, for receiving that designation. But
What does the town have to weigh, the benefits of the tax base that comes with that?
so if I were to start, you know, I would open up the feasibility study that was done probably over 10 years ago now. And look at what the recommendations are, remind myself of what the alternatives were and what the next steps were and whether there was a preferred alternative identified. And you would need to redo it. So you could apply for funding from the state to redo that feasibility study using today's dollars and today's science. And yeah, so I think there's a lot of momentum around. I mean, it wouldn't receive the momentum around village wastewater solutions because that's for historic villages. But still, I think that in an effort to pursue new town center designation, that conversation and that project would be compelling to the state if Georgia was serious in pursuing that. In terms of being eligible to get grants to start funding that as part of your municipal plan, just identifying that it's something that you want to consider and pursue would be, you know, enough.
To be able to process a grant or to be.
Yeah, to take the next steps to do some additional planning around or work that it would take to make you eligible to submit the application. So.
Susanna and I work toward the offering of a public water supply. So that is, you know, available in town to discuss. I mean, one of the prongs is somewhat hanging there.
Yeah.
But is there a way to update that? Because we wouldn't be able to do that without the language in the town plan
Wouldn't be able to do what?
to start the process of.
You wouldn't be able to submit the application, and I think that you probably wouldn't be able to submit a so we were talking about going after a municipal planning grant for in the fall, the next cycle, right? That would be, you could do that, it would be, I'm thinking it'll be for a few, you could do it for a variety of things. Number one, you're gonna need to finish your town plan update, what you've started. And then number two, you could do some focused South Village discussion around new town, you know, planning that would be needed to further a new town center designation. And you wouldn't, in order to apply for a municipal planning grant for that, you would not need to have anything already in your plan. You're fine now because you would just be preparing for application, and part of that would be updating the plan.
So neighborhood development areas only go if you have one of the other things already in your.
The new statute, yeah, for a neighborhood development area, which would be eligible. It's gonna be a few years, but if you decide to do new town center, it's gonna be a few years, you know, several years before you would do that.
We won't
Many.
be here.
But
I won't.
certainly, if you wanted to encourage development around Georgia Center, you would be eligible after you get a village center designation there for a neighborhood development area if you had either or. And that could be a community system. It doesn't have to be like the same concept as, it could be like a shared wastewater system or something. along
Oh, you
those lines,
still
or
have
a
to have
shared
wastewater in the neighborhood?
neighborhood, you need either or.
Oh.
Municipal water or wastewater, but that's new. I believe that's part of S.
I was trying to figure out what a neighborhood development area, is. So it says it's infill area within walking distance of an already designated downtown village center, new town center.
Yeah,
So you have to have one of the others before you can do that.
correct. It's step two.
Okay,
So, so if it was a village center, it's around a quarter mile buffer, you can choose an area that you would target for residential development. And then you get the permitting benefits
And the developers get benefits as well. No land gains and stuff like that,
Yeah.
especially when they're slicing up new lots to
Yeah.
develop.
And that's all on here. Okay, so that was good discussion, but I just want to finish our discussion on training, so. We discussed, or I mentioned the essentials of land use planning regulation training that we're doing. I am interested in hearing, do you think that people are looking for that in-person option now? Is that really helpful?
What option, I'm sorry?
In-person option in
I am.
addition to Zoom, you are.
Is the Vermont League of Cities and Towns still doing their get-together sessions or?
They're not quite the same as they used to be. but
Yeah, I
they
think
are.
that most of their sessions are now Zoom as well, but they do.
I think that's the last ones we attended, right?
They're doing a one-day town hall this year, aren't they?
I haven't seen.
I think they are, but
Yeah, I think we
it's
got emails
it's a
today.
little blurb. It's
Maybe.
not like all the classes that they used to do and all the choices. It's more of a, we're gonna give you a little bit of everything.
The Vermont Planning Association is holding a spring workshop on June 2nd, I believe, in Randolph. It's a hall, but that's in person and it's on revitalizing village centers.
Hmm.
You have to have a village center to revitalize.
We also are looking at planning another training on zoning in June, sort of emerging topics in zoning, probably covering some of what S100 goes into, looking at bringing in a few planners from around the state to talk about some case studies of how that they've incorporated form-based standards or other zoning standards that are achieving housing options in their communities. So stay tuned for more information on that on our website. And we're also working on a better direct email communication for trainings as well. We're constantly trying to make sure that we have this updated list of email addresses, which is challenging with the changing nature of the boards, but
Town Fair, September 20th.
so that's, we would do direct email outreach. It would be in our newsletter. So if you're not getting our newsletter and want to, that's a good way to receive updates. And just a quick email to anyone at NRPC to say, hey, I'm not getting the newsletter I want to, would be a way to make sure you're getting that. But that's how we get information about our trainings or other work that we're doing. And so I'm curious to hear from you, are there specific topics that you think would be helpful in terms of training if we brought them beyond just local general knowledge others? I mean, you mentioned scenic.
Yeah, that's one of the things we're going through at this point is we've just, within the past year or so, switched to a different format where we have the DRB and the separate planning, and planning's role now has taken on not only doing the plans and the regulations, but also planning. I mean, and that's kind of a whole new area. It was always, what are the town's dreams, sort of a thing, but now we have more time to actually sit and discuss paths forward. And that takes a little more expertise than collecting dreams. And so
Collecting what, I'm sorry?
collecting dreams, I mean, you get dreams come and go, but if you have a plan, you gotta have a plan. So it takes on a little bit more depth, I think. And I think, so this is a new role for even the people that have been on here for years. So it's, this is where I think the training will be handy and stuff. And it just so happens that we have also the municipal plan coming up, but we've been sort of pushing that out a little bit, but.
Yeah, so let's talk about the municipal plan.
Can I just mention a topic that I'd like
Yeah,
to
yeah,
know
yeah,
more
yeah.
about is housing. Because when we were writing our regs, we suggested that we put in this is sort of something that we've been doing for a little while now. When somebody comes in with a large project for somewhere in the ballpark of every 4 houses, we ask them to build one smaller house because every developer wants to build 4-bedroom houses.
Yeah, that's,
And so we request 1,500 square foot or less to be kept at that size for a minimum of 5 years. And it'll be written
Yeah.
into their deed.
That's
And we
great.
were gonna put that in our regs, and Northwest said, no, you shouldn't put that in your regs. And so far, most people have agreed to that. A couple have not. One came back and changed their mind and added the small house, and another we asked to put in an AUD to provide a smaller housing unit or an ADU, sorry, instead of that small house, which I think they're gonna do, but how can we regulate people to build smaller houses? Because we're not, the people who want to live in Georgia, who, you know, grew up here, get married and want to buy a house here, can't afford to live here. So we're bringing in people who demand more services, but we don't have anybody to provide the services because they can't live around here.
well, I think that we could craft a way if it was tied to your housing, your municipal plan, and the need to provide a diversity of housing sizes to meet the needs of your population. And so I think that if you crafted a development review standard that tied to that, and that would be able to be applied fairly and consistently across all projects, so that it was not something that you were just pulling out for one project and would be therefore not necessarily perceived as being fair, then I think that you could do it. That would be my opinion.
I think that you're getting people to do it, but I think legally, if they challenge you, you will lose.
Well, we're just asking. We're not telling them they have to. We're asking. And so far, we've had a lot of compliance, but we were told not to put it in our zoning regs, which to me was baffling. Like, why did you tell us not to put it in? And what's better than that? That's what I'm like, what are
Well, I
other
think it
towns
was an
doing?
illegal,
No, you
concern.
guys told us not to put it in, not our lawyer. You as in
Well,
Northwest.
we're professional planners though, that may have said that we might have had legal
Oh,
concerns.
I don't really know why we were told not to put it in, but
Yeah.
I was surprised with that because.
We could be taking a couple steps
Yeah.
back, but was it explained like what the town plan is for folks who may not know and the importance of it and how the town uses the town plan? So I feel like half the table knows and is familiar with it. Some folks may not know the importance.
I mean, I read it.
Like,
Jared's probably deserved that tonight.
Yeah.
For anybody who's on Zoom, so I don't know if you could explain
Yeah.
what the town plan is, why it's important and how a town uses it, just kind of just broad
Mhm.
strokes.
Right. So the town plan is your broad visionary document, and it serves as your roadmap for, building and doing projects and making the town what you want it to be. There are it's a comprehensive plan. And so there are a lot of topics that it needs to address. The Vermont statute sets forth, parameters for what all municipal plans in the state should include. And so those, that can, a lot of times ends up being a table of contents, but it doesn't have to be, right? But so you're going to be looking at growth and development and land use. You're going to be looking at transportation and managing and budgeting for roads and stormwater. You're going to be looking at natural resources and the areas in your town and how to protect certain resources through development or other projects. You're going to be looking at ensuring that renewable energy is allowed for and other energy considerations and siting. You're going to be looking at housing. And so the plan sets forth goals and policies that are then used as a basis for implementing that, those goals and policies. And, a really effective plan is visionary, and it sets that broad vision that the community can get behind, and then identifies specific actions that to guide the municipality on a day-to-day basis in achieving that vision. That's what a municipal plan is. It's on an 8-year cycle. So and it is a cycle. Your job never ends. The plan is never done, right? And so you adopt the plan, and then you are working on implementing the plan, and you're constantly referring back to the plan, and then you're starting to make plans for amendments again.
No, we're writing our regs, and then we're doing the.
Right.
How many of these plans do you generally see through these 8-year cycles before you start to see action?
Well, it depends on the actions. And I think that that's one of the best that, that's really important too, is to understand that there's going to be long-term, short-term, medium-term goals. There's going to be low-hanging fruit that are really easy to implement and maybe don't really involve a lot of investment or capital. There's going to be bigger projects that involve a lot of investment in capital. And so I think, organizing an implementation chapter in a way that really sort of helps you identify those projects and how to work on them simultaneously, right? So, because it can be really helpful to have those smaller projects that are easy to achieve, and so that you can feel like, wow, I'm getting something done, while at the same time working towards those longer, bigger, more expensive, but more impactful potentially, not necessarily, projects. But that's my opinion. There's lots of different projects, and it's important to focus on the smaller ones too, and feel the impact that those smaller ones can have. And also think about ways that, sometimes you can look at doing things in a different way that cost less money and still have those bigger ticket items on the table. But sometimes your planning commission might need something else to work on that can just really bring people together and become more energized. So finding other fun projects, I think, is a great way to, it's important to keep the job fun too. And if you're always bogged down by big projects that cost a lot of money, that you feel like, you're never going to get there. Like, spend a meeting coming up with fun, small scale projects.
We have a list. Well over a
You
page
can't
long.
always just do, but don't get rid of the bigger long-term projects. I mean, they need to still be there and they're important.
You started the meeting out with going through sort of an analysis of our current plan. And there were several items you're saying should be improved to bring it up to date. And if we did all those things, would the plan then be considered a complete plan or not? Or are there others?
Yeah. I mean, this was a very condensed version of like the full checklist that we do for regional approval. But there's only a few items that you would need to address to get regional approval. I mean, your plan, if you didn't like eliminate a bunch of stuff that needs to be there in the next draft. But your plan as it stands right now received regional approval, and there's just like forest integrity, public housing, just a few minor things that you would need to add, but other than that, it's in good shape.
Bills that have passed in the last 8
Yeah,
years.
exactly.
Thanks, Carl.
What's that? I'm sorry.
Bills that have passed in the last 8 years, thanks to you.
Yeah.
Those are the things we need to update.
So I heard you say that, how long ago was it that you switched from zoning to development? Zoning board.
I think it's 2 years ago. I think it was 2021 is what I
Yeah,
saw.
May
Say.
2021.
Oh, so that's big. That's,
No, it was the end of August,
Oh, was it then
beginning of September.
Yeah, because it was a
Okay.
bit of a transition period where we were,
doing both?
yeah.
and so are you feeling like you're on the other side now of that transition?
Those two are on.
Yeah, really.
We play both
Are you on
sides,
both
so,
boards?
yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's helpful to have that connection.
It is very, very helpful.
Yeah.
Because
It would be
there
crazy
does,
not to have a connection, I think. It would be very difficult.
and in that comes, so we have our regulations, which DRB deals with most of the time. and we have the town plan, which is where planning kind of lays. But one of the difficulties that I've seen through the thing is that the town plan being as dreamy and nebulous. And one of the interesting things you were talking about, actually putting some specific wish items in it. How specific are we supposed to get with the town plan? Because
When you're
are
talking
you
about
talking a
implementation
direction,
section,
or are you talking, this is a plan we want to do?
when we're talking about the implementation section, you can get as specific as you want, for sure. I'm understanding that, 8 years from now, hopefully, you're gonna come back to that implementation section, you're gonna be like, well, that's old, we did that. Let's
Yeah,
cross that out.
because I'm not
Is that
sure we had a
the
whole
goals
bunch of,
section? Same as implementation?
No.
Or not the same?
yeah, I'm not
So
sure we,
the goals and policies set the, broad direction. Then you're gonna have the analysis and sort of the background for those goals and policies. And then you're gonna have the actions that
implementation.
will implement it. And the actions are, really should be those tasks. Yes, it's that table. Mhm. So one thing I did want to mention, but, it's hard to stay on topic here. There's so many. Sorry, I'm doing. So we did just do a housing needs assessment. And that was a partnership of NRPC, but then also our Housing for All project, which is a working communities challenge project funded by the Federal Reserve of Boston. And so there are several of these working community challenges projects that were funded across the state. Ours happens to be focusing on housing. And maybe if you've met, we have hired a coordinator, Barry Lamke, for this Housing for All project, and is so he's the coordinator working with a multidisciplinary group, a variety of different organizations from around the region on addressing the housing crisis specific to our region and looking at how to really focus on system change in ensuring that we do a better job of providing housing for all people in the region. And so, but there was just an email sent out from Barry Lamke offering to come to a planning commission meeting or a select board meeting or whatever meeting you wanted to present on the housing needs assessment, but then also talk about, well, how can Housing for All help you work on housing in your community? And so if that was something that you were interested in, I can certainly let Barry know, or I don't know that, we're doing our best to, like I said, build that email list, but I don't know who received it. So that is an offer. Certainly is, you mentioned housing and that gave me thinking, well, Barry just sent this email out late last week, intending to say, please invite me to come talk to you about housing and how Housing for All as an organization might be able to help you work on housing in your community.
A few months ago, Tim Smith from St. Albans contacted me. I'm on another board with him. And he said that there was a group, I think it was with Northwest, maybe trying to get together to kick around housing on a sort of a regional basis. And then before they actually put it together, he said, no, they decided, well, I'll get back to you. And I never heard any more. Does that ring a bell at all?
It was just a couple months ago.
Yeah, it was recently.
I'm not sure what he was specifically referring to then.
And I don't
because the
remember
Housing
the
for
other
All
names.
has been together for a while, but there are a few different efforts that Housing for All is working on. Like right now, one of the things that we're doing complementary to the housing needs assessment is I think it's called Voices for Home, but it's intended to profile, they're doing interviews of people that have different types of housing challenges or have overcome housing challenges. And so it's going to be like a video series that will be presented on social media and other avenues to put a face to the, nuts and bolts analysis that can, lose many people. It's hard to sort of really feel like the true impact of the housing crisis even when you're looking at the numbers, even though the numbers are really dire. So it's meant to put a face to it. Yeah. I don't know if that's maybe what he was talking about, but there's a lot of
He
different,
also serves on that.
Yeah.
He's chairman of that. too.
Well, they're part of this housing for all.
yeah, so
That's
there's a lot of different projects. Another thing that they're
probably
doing,
this that he's talking, but I don't know.
well, you know what, if you want Barry to come present
Yes,
to you,
that would be.
all you
handy,
have
I
to do
think.
is ask,
please.
and he will be here.
Yeah. That's- so this is a disconnect that we have had a problem with for many years. It sounds like we could have a lot more targeted projects in the town plan. But one of the difficulties is the disconnect between, let's say, the more forward-thinking people in town that might have a plan. The less forward-thinking people in town, which, you know, in any town, there's that group. But how to apply that to a profit-based development scenario. We've had one guy in particular who is one of our better developers. And he actually came back and asked for an amendment to his plan because he had put out there were a couple of cul-de-sacs in the plan. And one cul-de-sac was going to be strictly duplexes. And he said that he had a waiting list for the McMansions. And he said he had no interest at all. He could not get rid of the duplexes. And he asked us, is there any way
Interesting.
that we can just swap it out and put the McMansions in? And we had.
That's actually, you know, contrary to what like our needs assessment would say in
Right.
terms of something
So
like.
Right.
we don't
mismatch
know
and supply and demand.
how
Yeah.
truthful that is,
Right.
but that's what we're hearing.
Right, the people moving into Georgia are, you know, but unfortunately, that income level, they're not making it in Georgia. So
Right.
that means that they're all
The money is
influx.
probably going to another state somewhere. You know,
Well,
they're-
it's
they're
in
working
wherever,
some-
but what it winds up being is making very, very remote residents, if you want to put it that way.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
so we're having a problem creating any interest in building housing for the people that are
right.
actually in the area. And they're moving out. Which is,
And if you look at the housing stock, you know, and the fact that we have decreasing housing's, average housing size and you know, a big increase in single person households and smaller
Mm.
households in general, non-family households, you would think that we would need more smaller units. And that's, I mean, that's what the numbers
Well, I
point
think
to, is we actually, you know.
one of the keys is if you watch, I mean, my wife and I are, you know, serial real estate people. Never actually dealing with it, but all they're watching it, you know, HGTV and all that. And you look at these people that want an 800 square foot living room. And it's like, you know, why? And that just increases the cost, increases everything, but nobody wants small,
Yeah,
even though they want to only pay small.
Well,
Uh,
if I may, so one of the challenges when I came here a few years ago, I was shocked by the limited number of rentals. And when I say limited, anyone can go on Facebook and do rentals in Georgia and nothing
Yeah.
comes up.
Yeah.
There's
Because we
just
only have
no.
I mean,
few
that's
units.
practically the
Yeah.
case in
And I
Salem City
read,
right
and
now.
I
Yeah,
read.
but they have some at least. We just
Yeah.
don't have any.
So I'm just curious, you know, why there, you know, I know in Burlington and across the state, there's been a big push to do accessory dwelling units. And I don't even know, again, I'm still relatively new to this area, if that's something that we.
Did you read the town report this year? There's a
Yes.
whole article about,
But, okay,
accessory
that's
dwelling
great,
units,
but
right?
again, what are the steps that the town is taking, right? What are those, you know?
we're
There's
gonna
a
go
lot
knock
of-
on your door. Can we build an accessory dwelling unit above your garage?
But again, it's engaging.
From the website, there is, there was I think it's recorded and you could access it from the Housing for All website that you were just on, but there was a webinar that Barry put on earlier with a panel of, resource providers on building accessory dwelling units.
Yes, yeah, yeah, because I researched that quite a bit. We did.
Is that you're gonna need to get your wastewater permit, either a new one or an updated.
Great wastewater system, it's just not. like
You need
you're on
another
municipal
bedroom.
sewer.
Still need to upgrade your permit on municipal sewer, your allocation, so that's not a totally just
Right.
add as.
You
much
may-
as
But there's
but-
some money for it
there
still,
is
right?
some money
It
for
was.
the, I think if I'm not.
But as long as you're.
Yeah, it's
$50,000
$50,000, so it's a sizable amount, it's not peanuts.
To
Show.
Yeah, the
That.
number of households.
This growth rate that you're talking about often usually comes, like you said, in St. Albans City, somewhere where they have a designation that it assists a developer in carrying some of these exorbitant costs and infrastructure that it's tough to develop here in Georgia when you have to come up with a water system. There's no water and sewer to hook on to. It's
Right,
not gonna come here easy.
no,
And the other issue here is you gotta remember, we're a choice community, so we're very different than most of Franklin County. In that sense, that a lot of people will move here just for that choice schooling option.
No.
You can live here in Georgia and not live in Essex or any, South Burlington, but still get that education that you want for your children. And there's a lot of people that are doing that. I mean, that,
It's always been an issue in this.
And I agree that a lot of people move here not to live near that density.
right,
This is the.
You're right.
This is
so they want the big house
place
here.
where they don't want that.
Yeah, well, when I was doing green up on Saturday, you drive around and there's the small ranch houses. And then like the next generation is raised ranches and capes.
Yeah,
And then the next generation is bigger houses and now they're just monster.
yeah, you could like
houses, know?
literally see
You
the
can
fans
tell
driving down
When
Sandy Bridge.
houses were built by driving around.
Yeah.
family
Yeah.
sizes down.
Yeah, but the house is big, big.
Yeah. Crazy.
so I do wanna make sure to touch base on like a plan for your plan. Specifically, before we wrap up for the evening. So I've spoken with Doug a little bit on the phone about, how to move forward. The grant cycle in the fall, the next municipal planning grant cycle would not allow you time to do a full, like, robust plan update before it expires. So what I was proposing was perhaps we could, and we're even if you came up with the funding on your own to do a full robust plan right now, we wouldn't be able to help you right now with a full robust plan, just because our workload, we have a ton of other plans that are starting right now with the new municipal planning grant cycle and then other local contracts. But I think what we could do is a smaller contract with you to do a lot of the groundwork around data updates. And that would then set you up so that when you do go for a municipal planning grant this coming round, you would already have a lot of the data updates done, like census data, transportation data, housing data, utilities, facilities, services data, all of that data collection would be done. And so that then your application would be focused on maybe housing and South Village core or whatever other focus area you want. And you would then, the grant would pay for community engagement, pulling together the full document. If you're interested in formatting or other, revamping the plan in that way, you could build that in. But you would have that condensed timeline, and I think that would be possible if all of that data was already done. That makes sense. So I thought that would be a good path forward of still being able to go after some grant funding and address some big topics within that timeline. It also allows us to, really right now, our workload is pretty high, but we could do a smaller sort of data update contract between now and the next time the municipal planning grants are funded.
Are there other agencies that help with this?
Well, there's private consultants, so you certainly could go, so, yeah, I started with so the regional planning commission is only one option.
Right.
You could certainly, look to work with a private consultant and just do a request for proposal, or just call someone up and say, we want to do this, like, what would follow your local procurement procedure, whatever that is.
Yeah.
If it's just local funds that you're doing. I will tell you that, for a full-scale municipal plan update, it's gonna be over $20,000.
Well, I think you and I talked, it's
Like 20.
in the 15 to 20,000 anyways on yours, right?
If we were gonna do, yeah,
So,
We're
20 to
talking-
24 is what they've been running.
To the point earlier about your new regional planning draft coming out, the data that this town could use is pretty fresh for a lot of their.
Well, we have to go gather I mean, there is some data we would pull from the plan, but I mean, really, we'd have to go grab census data, and a variety of other, state data sources, for
So you don't pull
transportation.
the specific information for each of these towns you represent to write your plan? It seems like redundancy here. It seems like for you to write your plan, you have to know what each one of these towns has for these data triggers to put your plan together.
Well, each plan's a little different in terms of how it's put together. It's not like it's an exact template, but we have data pooled for the region that's broken out by the town. For sure, that we access and use for municipal plan updates and regional plan updates.
Now, you were talking about sort of a mini program that possibly we could implement this year in anticipation of the planning grant for next year. So do you have an approximate idea of cost on that?
On the data updates, so we have a few local contracts right now with Sheldon and Albert, for example, they're doing basically, we need to update our plan, but we just want to do a basic update. And so those tend to run around $5,000. And so I would imagine we'd put together something similar for you that would just involve doing the data updates. It could be a little less if we're not like doing any sort of like integration or final plan formatting.
Okay, so I mean, if the planning commission requests the select board to see if they can fund this, that would be the way to go. And
Yeah, I mean, you could request to me a work plan and budget, and I could give, or it's like a proposal, basically, that I could give that to you, that you could take that to the select board and ask.
And the goal of that is to get us closer to being able to apply for these grants? Is that what the data?
The reason why I was proposing that you look at breaking it up into those two segments is because your plan expires in January 2025.
We have so little
and so-
time if we wait
Okay.
for the grant next
Right.
year.
So it allowed you to get a jump start on it, and then, yeah.
Because right now is when they're giving out the money.
Yeah.
So it would be this time next year,
I'm hoping it's
Not
gonna be
like-
a little.
not like January first, but.
Yeah.
You know, so we're talking about a year
Yeah.
that we don't have the money, and then we need to be done by the end of that year, so.
You don't
cuts
go to
down.
your plans don't go to Australian ballot, right? Or
No,
that
But
takes just
the
more.
other
but we
thing-
still gotta have the public
Yeah,
hearings
yes,
and all
yes.
that, so.
Takes a
just-
few months.
The other thing to keep in mind though is our plan was in 2017 and it was a 5-year plan. So we're actually already outside the window. of
But
our
they
plan, but
changed the statute
right, the
while our
statute's
plan was
letting
in
us
place.
keep it
right?
longer, but it was really designed as a
Right.
5-year
Okay.
plan.
Technically, it's sort of run out already
Mhm.
because we wrote
think-
it as if it would be 5 years.
Right, I think it happened before you adopted it though, because you somehow got in that window of time. So maybe you wrote it and then.
Well, it
during
was-
I don't know.
Because of, we call it our
It was in
2016 plan.
Yeah, it was in 2017 that, I think every plan adopted after 2017 meets that 8-year cycle.
See, ours
It
was all
before.
done in 2016. It just, the actual date it got signed up was in January of 17. So technically, it's a 2016 plan meant to run out the beginning of
Right.
21. So,
All the more to sort of really focus
Right.
in and doing a good robust plan update.
so it really does need to be updated. Yeah, like Doug is saying, you know, it wasn't designed to be a
Mhm.
7-year plan, even though we got grandfathered in.
so you're gonna send us a proposal?
Yeah, I can send.
And that drives everything else that we do. So that drives the development review regulation
Mhm.
process. It drives everything else that we do.
Well, even, you know, like the road, policies and
Mhm.
ordinances that we're trying to update and, you
Right,
know, all
right,
those other
okay,
things.
yep.
You want this to reflect what we want in our town and them to be the guidelines that we're making people follow.
My understanding was that currently the state of our current plan is that we couldn't really apply for certain grants because of the fact that there's things missing in the town plan at the moment. Is that correct?
Specific to village center designation.
Yeah, okay.
You can't, yeah.
It's
So-
funny, because Richard Amore said our plan was fine, and then you came and said it wasn't, and I'm like.
He said you could apply for village
Yeah.
center designation.
We were getting ready to apply for it.
Well, he gave us a list of the steps that we needed to take in order.
Yeah,
to do
but
that.
he said that our town plan was okay. I'm
Do
pretty
you
sure.
have village center designation? I did a search. I didn't.
we don't-
think I
we
saw
don't.
that.
We do not,
No.
we still have to
We haven't
follow.
done anything yet. We've
Yes.
just talked to him, because we were trying.
No, but I mean, is there language that I somehow missed in your plan? I
Oh,
guess that's what
I
I
don't
was
know.
saying.
I don't know.
I did a search.
There
Okay,
there is not.
so you could,
No,
if
we
you
just
decided
started-
that it was a high priority, you could go through.
Yeah, we
you
don't
could add a
stop-
paragraph
I thought
to
we
your town
did.
plan and go through your adoption process now.
And
And then
we
apply.
started that process last year, last summer is when we started that,
Yeah.
which is well after the plan. was
See, in
done.
here, it says, much of this development has taken place in 3 village centers, Georgia Center, Georgia Plains, and more recently, South Village, so
Right.
it mentions.
It has to specifically identify village center designation as a
Oh, okay.
program
That's-
that.
That was one of the things that he actually called out when you and I had the call with him that day, Richard. I think there was a list of things that I was actually talking with you about.
What we really wanted was for the South Village to qualify as a historic village, but he refuses to accept
Right.
that, and it seems to be the one that gets to choose. I'm not really sure how that works. but the
You
state
could
do
always
it.
submit an application and have them deny it.
Well, he already said he's not gonna consider, he said it has to be 50 years old. Well, we have all kinds of data that say there was a village.
Yeah, there were
50
certain
years ago.
criteria that he saw
And-
in the South Village that he felt based on seeing all of the applications that he sees, he knew it did not meet the criteria. Now, I think he did give us a list of those things. I can't recite what those are at the
Mhm.
moment. But he did feel pretty strongly, and again, we could absolutely submit it. The only thing we would be losing is our time submitting the application.
But maybe something that regional planning feels is worth a try because of new town center designation is so much harder to get.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Unless
that
you
if
guys
I
want 60
really,
unit housing
if I had to hang my hat and
developments
make a
over
decision
here.
right now, I would agree with Richard, is that, you know, the South Village doesn't really meet the intent of the historic village center designation program. But I also don't think that, you know, you can take some steps to pursue new town center, but I don't think the fact that you don't have village center designation for the South Village is really like a make or break deal. Yes,
It
there's
is to
some
him, if
benefits
you can
there.
tell, it is to him.
I applied for, I have a 91 unit housing development in the South Village. And all the onus is on the developer. It's not like St. Albans where Dominic Cloud assists the developer to make this housing happen. Okay, there's zero. We did a study in 2019 where the whole town came together in the library. And the number one implementation goal was to build a sidewalk down Ballard Road. Never got done, no grant ever got applied for it. In my approval, they just encumber me with more infrastructure that doesn't make it worthwhile to. The cost per housing unit is so high that we've looked at footprint lots in the South Village so that I can hit a VHFA affordable workforce housing units to sell to people where a young couple goes to work every day and could get into one of these things, but the infrastructure costs are so high without any help from the municipality, it's mind-boggling. I have a public water supply out there that could serve over 250 homes. Susanna and I worked offering it to the town. The town didn't want it. They thought I should be a businessman and go sell my own water. I just think that there's not a lot of education for these boards of what really is available and what would help one another out there to achieve these housing goals. And Susanna, you worked hard at it, and I'm gonna give you a lot of credit, especially listening to me. But we're just kind of stuck in it, but I'll email you a little bit about it. I have emailed Barry and Ian.
Sure, well, and I just, to go back to, you know, initiating the planning that needs to get done for a new town center, I think is a great next step because. You know, that if you use the application as your guide, And it's all laid out, and not to say that they're easy, and you have easy answers, but. Water and sewer is one of the problems that needs to be solved, but it could be solved if you want it enough, I think. And so I think that starting to, you have to want it, you have to put it on the table and say, "So we want the South Village to be a new town center. We want to be able to encourage new development and housing there. In order to do that, we need to do this, so let's figure out how to do it." And I think it's, it does take some visionary
Take some money.
planning. It takes some money, but you can start the planning, identify the fund. Right now, I mean, maybe you're a little late to the game here because there's a lot of funding on the table right now that you may not. But, there's funding opportunities, and, you can consider
It should kind
There's
of
tools.
fail, is what you're saying.
with the ARPA funds,
Yeah.
but right now.
Yeah, and you can just imagine, with 30 small townhomes for first-time home buyers, the cost of running a public water supply is so enormous that their water bills shared over those 30 people, hoping that other water gets used within the district is just huge. I mean, it's a lot of money to run a
It is.
public community water supply. You can't break it down by a small number of units and still expect to do it. The state regulations are anything over 25 people. So, you're not talking but 3-bedroom units, you're talking 8 3-bedroom units and you're timed out. To have an association that has to pay for that water amongst 24 townhomes isn't gonna happen. They wouldn't be able to go get financing. The HOA fees would be too big. That water system needs to be used for all of the South Village in the future of other development in the South Village.
The other side of that.
It's a great, it sounds like a great asset to have available.
The municipality. Is this, that having the select board here is the municipality needs money. And you need that tax revenue and tax income coming from these kind of housing developments coming in. So even though you're investing into it for these village centers, hopefully you get it back on the other side with the increase in tax revenue.
Businesses that we've brought in too. People are pushing, some people aren't fans of that. So it's bringing in, but then still having to go elsewhere to do everything you want to do.
Yeah, and that's the idea. The village is supposed to be mixed, so that, we will start to have some services that you can actually walk to and not have to get in your car and drive to another town.
Has that recently been updated at all? I did a lot of work probably 25 years ago or so on cost of community services stuff. And the residential housing. was-
Seeing an update to one of those
Because
recently.
those numbers were scary,
Yeah,
that you did not want residential. That business and forestry and agriculture was the only people who paid the bills. And it wasn't much, there wasn't a huge amount to benefit a town for, buying or paying for new infrastructure and everything, but when you wound up in our town now, when one kid costs $15,000 to send through, George Elementary School, it takes a lot of other houses to make up for that don't have kids. And so residential is a definite loser, or it was, I mean, that's what the data was before. I was just wondering if it had been.
Wouldn't it still be though? Like if people are renting,
I think there's
and their
also a
children,
difference
you have to
in,
pay the
Well,
tuition.
the rent is not renters, because renters, it's still the owner of the property pays the property taxes on it. So that's kind of a wash. It's the difficulty is bringing in more people requires more town services. And if you bring in commercial, just the way that things have always been built, and thank you to people like, that the commercial people just get charged more in taxes, and they do wind up being an asset to the town. Because they, unless there's, you know, a sewer system has to be put in.
Right, I was gonna say there's
Yeah, I mean, there is a-
tip if there's certain density and infrastructure to
Correct.
support that.
And
density.
the other flip that comes into that too is if you wind up having to do tax abatements to attract those businesses, then they may not pay their way. And that's become a very common planning thing to give people, well, you know, we'll forgive this if you'll just please come to our town, and then it winds up costing more money, so this is why we need to have active planning. For trying to find out what the opportunities are and what the actual data is, and that's.
So I own a 2-unit house on the land that I'm developing, and it says it on the property card. You can't have more than a couple thousand property cards to flip through. It should say who has multi-unit housing on your property.
Well, that's kind of what we thought, how hard that would be to go through the grand list or even the records as to
You can
who's.
come up and scroll through the screens.
Yeah, and that was like, oh, no, it's just easy, we'll get the data. And when they got the data, it was like, what?
Yeah, we should be able to get.
We actually thought one night we were gonna take one of our planning meetings and just go sit in the vault, and it was just. Get a pizza and some coffee and sit through and just.
Exported into an Excel data.
I was just gonna say, is there not a spreadsheet?
Oh, we're still going back to handwritten property records here. This is, you know. We're getting there, we're getting there.
What?
Jamie, that helps with the dense developments is it's not 100 houses spread on big long streets that you have to maintain those long roads and plow them.
Well, I mean, my question is, if you have an 8-unit building and each unit has 2 kids. It costs 15,000 per kid, let's say, to send them for tuition, but
That's just for elementary.
but the tuition for high school.
Plus-
So how
Oh,
did,
yeah.
but the taxes on that building alone are only 40,000.
You guys set your impact fees for.
But do we?
That's a one-time
That's
fee.
a
Yeah, the one-time fee, and it can't,
So it's
you
not
can't put enough of an impact fee on the poor developer, that'd kill them. You know, so that it has some effect, it's a way of compensating a little, but it has.
But what I'm saying is like those people coming in are now using the taxpayer money to send their kids to South Burlington or Essex, which again, if the taxes on the building don't equal that amount, then we we're
We
at
don't
a
even come
deficit.
close.
Not
It's a
even close.
Tiny,
Well,
tiny fraction.
When was the last time any addition was done to your elementary school?
Oh, God.
Where our current levels over there are almost half of what
Right.
they should be, so.
That's right, because
We actually need more
We've got.
housing
Yeah.
just to keep the cost down and.
Correct.
Yes.
We're not overburdening our school system at all.
Right.
The supervisory union had no problem signing off. They
Right.
said they needed kids.
Yeah, no, they do.
Right,
Had no-
well,
Speaking of kids.
they need kids for the number of facility.
For an hour and the kids are just probably running all over the house. Thank you so much. Sorry to leave early. I appreciate your time.
Thank
All right.
you. I did have another update relating, and maybe you're aware or not, but there's about to be new flood hazard maps produced.
Oh, good, okay, because that was one of our.
Doug went to a class on that, right?
So did
Yeah.
I? Okay,
Yeah, I
great.
was there.
So you're all up to speed. We're apparently the draft maps will be released at any point and will be given about 2 weeks' notice when the
It's the same like in
Work
end of
map.
summer, winter.
right, they're gonna keep pushing it out. It was supposed to be spring, but here we are, you know. Into June.
They wanted to wait for the rainy season. Go
But
see how
so-
many.
The first step in that is gonna be the work map meeting. They'll announce to say the drafts are ready for public review. And they'll say, we're having a county work map meeting on this date, and we'll do our best to make sure that everyone knows about it. And FEMA will set it, and I will have no control over when it's scheduled. But But that will be your first opportunity to get a look at those maps. They want you to find errors. They want you to, not in the flood hazard boundary, but other errors. But you'll get a peek for how it might be different and how it might impact properties. And then 2 years from that work map meeting is the date that bylaws need to comply with the minimum FEMA work standards, but it's also your opportunity to take a look. Well, do we want to, do some additional, beef up our flood hazard bylaws? That would be also an opportunity. The state flood hazard coordinator actually pulled your bylaws out and already sent them to FEMA for review because he thought yours were a good example for the region, one of the higher.
Focused a lot
We
on
put a
quality.
lot into
So
it.
I haven't, so I haven't, actually FEMA hasn't sent their comments back, but we're gonna have a direct review
That's
from
good.
FEMA first.
So what's this
So-
called, what?
This is the FEMA flood hazard area, so that
Okay.
for the national flood insurance.
They
program.
changed how they designate the land. They use different terms now for the stream banks and the area that they cover. And we had to update, we
Yeah,
were
we put it.
right at the end of doing our plan when
Well,
we hit the fan,
yeah.
so we quickly
Yes,
flipped
you
it.
have the quotas, yeah.
So there, and some of the naming is already out of date.
Is it
For
really?
what- For the class, yeah. They don't use some of the terms anymore. so.
It was, we needed to change because there were too many terms that were very similar. and it was
Yeah.
really
But the
confusing.
digitizing is gonna be really helpful too, because,
Yeah.
yeah, especially for zoning administrators.
Yeah.
Not
What is
check the
the,
paper berms from 1981.
Yeah, they're bad.
What is most towns had to be on a GIS electronic system by a certain date. Does that have anything to do with Northwest Regional Planning, where you can access data about the town? Doug, maybe you know more about what you're talking about, like, Emily, I can go on to
We have our-
Colchester and.
I don't know, but
I don't
it's
think that there's a
requirement.
requirement. I mean,
Okay.
we have a lot of small towns in Franklin County that, barely can keep up a website.
Georgia,
Mm.
Georgia might be one of those.
No, our new website's gonna be pretty robust, but I mean, we have our personal
Here in
map on there
another
that just
year.
got updated last week. Which has a lot of data on it, and it's actually, we expanded the amount of data that's on that parcel map now, so it's. Not only covering regular parcels, but inactive parcels, which is a huge help for like your development. Should show up there as an inactive parcel now.
So you're gonna write a
Divided.
proposal. and send it over with
Yeah, like a
estimated
work
cost.
plan and budget, that sort of outline, like what we can do for this initial first phase one of the town plan update, shall we call it?
Okay. Second. Get it, like, by the 19th or something.
By
like that.
19th.
Sound reasonable?
I will get it to you by the end of the week because I'm on vacation next week.
Super.
There you go. And will that be like an itemized thing or just a package deal or?
I'm gonna update sort of our template basic town plan, work plan, and so it's a table with, different tasks. And an average hourly rate and total cost. And I'll probably try to map out a schedule based on what we think we can do with our project.
Okay.
Yeah, because one area that I was wondering whether we could save a little bit on. Is whether it's possible to get somebody, a temp or something that is good at formatting and data entry. And just sit down at their laptop at their home remotely, whatever, and type this sucker up, because we spent an incredible amount of time. Of office staff. Just putting that thing together last time, and then every time we got an update, there was another
So,
150 page.
what I'm gonna
thing
recommend
published
Is that, I mean, we're gonna have hopefully a Vista and an intern that can help work on some of this. And we definitely have an intern, but we're still working on a Vista, AmeriCorps Vista. What I'm gonna recommend for this phase one is that we're not working on formatting, we're just working on editing your existing document and updating the data, right?
Right.
And then with your grant, if you wanna work on restructuring the plan or reformatting, then all of the data will be there and it'll just be about sort of reformatting.
Yeah, putting it
right?
in.
Yeah.
And that's what it was just every, we need to change, section 2, paragraph 13, and all of a sudden it reformatted every
Jogged
page.
everything.
Jogged everything up, but if we could just find one person that knew how to do the data entry and
Well,
all
and
of
if
this
you do-
update stuff
so-
was handed to them and they could.
Right, and so when you get the grant, you're gonna either hire a consultant or the NRPC,
She's
or
gonna
hire
save
someone
all
that's
that
gonna do it
until-
for you.
Till after
Yeah.
we get the grant.
So
So we'll
we'll,
have a year's worth of updates for them to.
To fudge with,
Yeah.
But, you know, whatever.
and we'll have updates to the updates and.
it's better that, yeah, well, you should, we'll manage the word processing document with all of the updates so that it's all in one place and. We can find a good way for you to be commenting and providing updates on your own that we can then incorporate.
Just an outside question, how robust, I think there's a lot of talent on this planning commission, what I have seen, is a lot of that talent ends up in other areas of town boards. This is kind of, I guess, recently been a breeding ground of others. Nick, we lost you.
Nick,
recently.
Nick's talking about you.
We've got a new, great qualified guy, I'm sitting behind here, that just joined. I would like to see, 7 members on the planning commission, so they can move stronger, harder, faster. What do you see in your other municipalities? Is it, I mean, this planning commission has been as low as 3 members.
Right.
No,
And 2 of
not,
those members.
well, only from attrition. It's a 5-member board since we switched to DRB.
Yeah, I think it varies. I think 5 is a good workable number, and I see that a lot around the region and the islands. Because yeah, you have a lot of people wearing different hats in the municipality and on a lot of different boards, and so it's hard to find those volunteers.
It really
It
is.
is.
It really is. And that's the biggest challenge, right? Is that you need doers. I think that's you need people that are going to not just show up to meetings, but will away from those meetings, jump in and
Yeah,
multitask and do things.
Yeah.
Beyond just being present and voting on things, or else nothing happens. And I think that's the challenge that I've seen, with this town wanting, they get behind an idea or get excited about an idea. There's a lot of effort put into it, but then, it kind of stalls, right?
Mhm.
And I think that's probably the frustration of a lot of the people in the room tonight, is
yeah.
how to continue that.
Mhm.
Because you have certain people that are the doers, but you don't have enough, we just don't have enough of them. I think that's the
Right.
challenge.
Yeah, and it's a challenge that already communities experiencing. I mean, some communities have decided to see if like a stipend helps incentivize, but I mean. Yeah, it's nice, but it's not always gonna be the make or break in terms of
Sure.
getting someone to step up, right?
Of course. Yeah,
It's
they
an
have to
added
want to do
bonus,
it.
but yeah,
Yeah.
So we're a full 5 again, Suzanne, on your board.
We are.
Awesome.
but this has been really a really great conversation, really fun to connect with you again, and I look forward to continuing work. I will work on, I'll type up a few notes from this discussion and send you the consultation report, and then also the municipal plan phase 1 work plan and budget. So,
Thank you for coming.
yeah, you're
Yeah,
welcome.
This is very informative.
So now you can attend another meeting in your car.
Right. I think what is it, 8:45? Yeah, I don't think anyone
Yes.
needs this late.
Yeah. Oh, you had a good dog meeting. That's a-
Thank you.
All right, so back to the minutes. Anybody see any, okay.
First, I just suggest or recommend or ask that we get the lines, numbered lines.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
that'd
that's
be-
handier, yeah.
Back on the draft minutes. The title.
Our minutes are gonna completely change next time, so it's It won't be that way. I'm just letting you know, because we are now using a minute software system that was purchased. So I think by the next meeting, possibly by the next meeting, at least the meeting after that, we'll be fully running with that new system.
But can those lines be numbered there?
No, it's cannot. It's a whole system that we're gonna be using.
Let's see if that's,
Okay,
anyway. The title of it, minutes, Georgia Planning Commission.
no,
Making
yes,
the
Commissioner.
There's inconsistencies with periods after the first initial, some it's line one, playing chair S Brown, but then you jump down to number,
Yeah.
the other one's just inconsistent, same with periods at the end of bullet statements or notes. Under number 4, commercial daycare discussion, third bullet. That last sentence, board did allow for temporary use, that's AR3, but if town municipality. Water may change, there's something missing there.
Yes, there is.
And that water permit, it's not critical, but it's a state water permit, not a town. And some missing periods.
Okay, so what are we gonna put in there? Or if town gets municipal water, it may change the daycare? Does that make sense? Or input? I think we can just lose that sentence because that really doesn't have anything to do with our giving them the permit. But then, the next line, there's a long process to get a state water permit. That makes sense.
But I think I was talking more about outside daycare in general. Responsibility
Yeah.
in that specific case that was on the table.
Little bit of a mess.
No, that's good. All right,
And
next,
then next page, at 5, the L1 zone district. And then under 6 town plan, it's NRPC, not NWRPC, that shows up a couple times. And again, like I said, just some things end with a period, some don't. Some first initials have periods, some don't, so I'm just checking that.
anybody else got anything?
Just a comment, that I know there was a statement made at the last meeting that I attended here. That the town board did not approve the application for a grant for the town plan update. And in the minutes, and I didn't bring it with me tonight, but in the minutes of November 28th, it was stated that, first of all, I believe the planning commission has come forward asking for $30,000 for a 2-part grant. 15 for scenic views and 15 for the basic part of the grant. And there was a big discussion at that meeting and on the 28th of November. And at the conclusion of that, I know I moved to approve the basic part of the plan, $15,000. And I watched the tape of that meeting the other day also, and it's very clear there that we did approve at that
You
meeting.
approved, but you didn't ever finish the grant, so that was the,
Well, we also came back for a different amount, and I sent that out because it was different, and that never got approval from you guys. There was crickets, not even a response saying that an email was received. So if you had received it and had decided on it, the town administrator never sent it to me. So.
Right.
the grant got partially written by Emily, then Emily left. Handed the
Because I
grant
was
over
not-
and it never got completed. It wasn't that you didn't,
There was a time frame, and we did not get
It wasn't
approval
that
for
we-
the update.
it wasn't that you didn't agree that we needed the money, it was that the grant didn't get completed.
We didn't get approval.
I
for the
guess
second
maybe it
round.
got worded incorrectly when we were talking about it. It wasn't that you didn't approve of it, it was that it didn't get completed.
Okay.
I just want to clarify, we came for one amount that was given by Greta. That was approved, and then she came back and said, actually,
It's
it's
gonna be
going to be
more.
more.
Right,
And that's when I went back to the board, and that's when I never heard back.
Hmm.
And by then, the window for the application had closed.
Well, I think it was very close on that November.
Yes, it
28th.
was.
Well,
Like
I
2
did
days,
not
right? Yeah.
it until a month before it was due, but I did not inform me of it until then. That's.
No,
All right. Anyway,
Okay.
the comment
So just
that-
to
And it
clarify
was
your
stated that,
clarification.
that we had at least moved to approve what was before us that night, okay?
Yep.
You're saying it was changed after that, that I'm unaware of, but.
I sent
I'm
you
not-
multiple emails.
Okay, I'm not disagreeing with you on that, I just
You
don't know.
are, but I sent multiple emails.
Okay. What do you mean I'm disagreeing? I just said I don't know, okay?
Well, I know I sent it.
Okay.
you got any comments? Anybody else? Take a motion to approve with corrections
So moved.
and a second. That's good, Greg wasn't here.
Right.
All in favor? Aye.
Okay, one abstention.
You can abstain
Okay.
since you weren't here.
Yeah, so two abstentions.
Thank you. Okay.
that?
No one else to get on tonight.
I was just unaware of the term deliberations, I meant to ask that when the minutes were, when you say enter
Oh.
deliberations, is that like?
It's sort of like your executive
Oh, it is,
session,
okay.
yeah,
So in other
but
words,
we're-
people leave or-
right, we're talking about the hearings that we just
Okay,
had.
That's what I assumed,
Yep.
but I wasn't sure it was a
Yep.
different term than I was used to.
They're similar.
Yeah, it's basically for the same reasons you have executive session, we have that for
Yeah.
not hurting, you know, it's just.
Thank you.
So I would like to talk to the select board in deliberative about the issue that we talked about at the select board meeting last night,
Mhm.
Okay,
because not all the planning board is up to speed on that.
all right, yeah.
But
Yeah.
first I wanna ask if you guys have anything.
I do, I wanted to go over, what your schedule is for the new town plan. You don't think we set dates at the last meeting, you were gonna meet twice a month, and it looks like we're still meeting once a month, because the next meeting is June 13th.
Well, Okay, that is not set in stone. I did bring that up to Doug. We'll talk about that right now. Thank you for reminding me. And our plan is, once we hear from Greta, which is gonna be very soon, to work on the town plan on the first Tuesday of the month and other stuff on this. No, that's not right. On the second Tuesday of the month, and the other stuff on the fourth Tuesday of the month is what we had talked about at our last meeting, but not all our members were there. So we'll talk about that right now. Thank you. So I don't know, you're not on our board, but the rest of you, you weren't here
I
last
wasn't
time,
here
and
last time, so.
you weren't here last time, but that was. We used to have 2 meetings a month, and then we went to 1 meeting a month last year, and that was enough. Once in a while, we would have a second one, but we have a whole list of other stuff to work on besides this town plan. So that's what we thought we could kind of balance and keep plugging along at the town plan. If we do that once a month and then work on the other things, is that all right to do 2 meetings a month? And Tony suggested an earlier start time. I don't know, I think you said 6:30 was more comfortable for you than 6.
Yeah, because I get home at 5, absolute earliest, so.
So 6:30, does that work for everybody? Is that okay? Tony. Tease me.
Change my mind.
You will see me coming from the hayfield at 6:30, I'm sure someday. I've done that before.
All right, 6:30.
So we'll start at 6:30,
Okay.
and is that okay with you?
Yeah, no, that's fine. you're gonna have to vote on that because we have a.
Because we did
published
set,
Meeting
okay.
times, so you're
So-
gonna, I'll have to change all your published meeting times.
take a motion to change our start time to 6:30.
No move.
I'll second
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So now our next meeting is 23rd, 22nd, select board.
Do you want to do that, or do you wanna wait until you hear back from Greta as far
That's
as?
our other meeting.
We got
So
plenty of,
we
yeah, we got
plenty
plenty of work to do.
And do you wanna get,
You wanna pick a topic? Is that what you're saying?
well, no, do you wanna get other bids from private entities to see how they compare. I was looking at, and I was trying to reach out, I haven't been able to get in touch, but I was doing research on town plans, and I came across this, which is Northfield's. And if you compare this.
Related to me, kid. I wish I talked to you.
If you compare this town plan with most of the town plans I'm seeing, I don't think regional planning did this.
Yeah, really.
This
Do you
is
know who did theirs?
very well laid out.
I know the folks. I
So
worked in town.
He talks about that one all the time,
it,
so,
out of all, I mean, I researched a bunch of them, and this was a very
Yes.
well done town
yes, it
plan.
is.
Who did you try to get hold of, Tom Davis or Mitch in zoning?
The zoning.
He only works 3 days a week, half days, so what I would say is, I'll email you Tom Davis's number, he's in there every day. He'll get right back to you, it's
Okay.
real good.
Yeah.
While you're waiting, Mitch might get back to you, but.
Yeah. I just, out of all of them, I didn't see one that was even close to.
Well, it's worth an ask, and
Yeah.
if we can split their time over the next 2 years, then possibly, select board can come up with some money this year and then more money next year, which could be covered by a grant, right?
Right, the planning grant doesn't have to be used for that.
Right, exactly. So that, same as we're doing with Greta, where she's gonna come up with a plan for, a certain amount this year and the rest with the grant
The
next year.
strange thing
So-
is Greta didn't think that her services were any cheaper than an outside.
Right.
I know.
That's what I heard.
Her prices were similar, so we'll see. Worth getting a price from them.
Yeah.
Did
Uh,
you like that plan, Suzanne?
yeah, it's more reader friendly,
Yeah. 60 pages.
most grants look like some kind of owner's manual, and that looks like a friendly read.
Yeah, no, this one definitely was designed well, it's got links in it, I mean, it's a nice plan.
That was Northfield.
Yeah,
Mhm.
They have water and sewer down there, so I'm enjoying myself with engineer Justin down there.
Have you ever seen a number, rough number of Champlain Water District extending?
No, but Justin did some figures. I think he emailed them to Emily years ago about some rough thoughts or costs of where the stuff was residing. I think that Husky's the closest for the sewer. I think that Susanna had pushed the select board for what was available for water right now on a public community.
Is it even possible to get into Milton's sewer system?
Oh, you'd like to do that before they pave the road, right, Susanna? We talked about that.
No, but I mean,
I know you'd have to probably go up 104A.
no, is it even an option?
Oh, I don't know what they have for application.
Capacity, that's because I never heard that mentioned. It's always been a water thing.
Yeah, we always talked about bringing their water, but not their sewer, so I don't know. I used to know somebody on their
Water,
sewer
if you
board,
guys
but,
get around to get to that point to talk about it, that's for sure. I think that's it. I think that was my only question. Are you guys going into the deliberation, I guess now?
we are,
Probably are.
Thanks so much.
thank you guys for coming.
Thank you.
Take care.
What are we gonna work on at our next meeting before we go into deliberative? We can decide that. We do need to update the rules of procedure and conflict of interest, which you may not have seen. Everybody got this letter. Did you get it? You gave it to us lots of.
I gave it to you, but now if the select board is doing their new one, it's gonna go, there's no real need to do that one, I think. So
Still sign it and just redo a new one when it comes out.
Yeah.
that one still has to be
It's imminent.
finished, it's in draft form.
You guys
so-
worked on it last night, right?
No. They gave it
That-
to a
that's
committee.
very about
They gave it to a
committees.
committee and said it could take a
Give
few
us some
months.
advice.
I'd rather update this and sign it while we're waiting. Cause this really is just a few, words where not current. Like we don't have a clerk, but we have a zoning assistant and things like that. I don't think everybody has to look at it if they don't want. Do you have a copy of it? Do you have
I
a
don't know if
copy?
I have the latest or not.
He just gave them to us at the last meeting, so you should have it.
Yeah.
And he gave us this Westford one to look at also.
The Western one?
Yes, he gave, that's what he gave us. Okay, that's minor. What do we want to work on as far as,
Okay, well, what we need is the list.
I've given you the list several times. Junk ordinance, we got under control. We got temporary structures, short-term rentals, definition of development, the road document, the big road document. Because we've done,
Where is that at?
we've done the little road document.
We just finished, we just put it into publisher, so we just finished reformatting it.
The big one,
The big one,
okay?
because we really need to get it done.
Yes.
I would say that's the priority one. because
I'm good with that.
That has,
What work do we have to do? What work has
we
to be
still
done?
have. We're getting some stuff, so like the speed ordinance has to go in. We just got the approval last night on the escrow, the class, that needs a new
New
class
class 4
4
agreement.
agreement. So there's a lot of stuff in there that,
There'll be the
Needs to
new
get-
trail agreement that should be in there.
Yeah.
2 trail agreements, one for the people that are using it as their driveway, and then the trail ordinance should be referenced in it.
so there's, yeah, I would say that would be your priority one right now.
Okay,
Right,
Road
sounds like-
signs. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in there that we need to do.
all right, so that will be what we work on. Now I will take a motion to go into deliberative.
So moved.
Second,
All in favor?
I,
Okay, so to get those of you that weren't at the select board meeting last night up to speed, the Fairbanks property
Hold